declare the meeting open and welcome you to the January meeting of Council. This afternoon, Council's internet wire was accidentally cut by external contractors who were carrying out works on the main street in Huonville. Tonight's Council meeting live stream connection is running on a backup line. The backup line is not as reliable as our usual internet connection, so it may potentially drop out. This means that if you are viewing the live stream from home, the video may be interrupted, and the councillors who are dialing in tonight, which is Councillor Gibson, may experience connection problems. If the internet connection drops out and we're unable to resume the live stream, we will revert to an audio recording of this meeting. If this is the case, the audio recording will be published tomorrow on the Huon Valley Council website. The recording of this council meeting will be available to the public on council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. And in accordance with council policy, I will now ask council staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, ma'am.
Thank you, Sandy. I'd first of all like to acknowledge that we meet today on the land of the Malacca people, the traditional custodians of this land. Our Aboriginal people have a deep spiritual connection to country, and they've cared for our waterways and our land for over 40,000 years in Tasmania. We pay respects to their customs, elders past, present and emerging. This evening we have in attendance Councillor Deputy Mayor Doyle, Councillor Newell, Councillor O'May, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Prince, and on the line, on the telephone line, we have Councillor Gibson present with us. Acting General Manager Matthew Grimsey, if I could welcome you, but also ask you to announce the staff that are here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Present at tonight's meeting, Director Infrastructure Services Len Bester, Director Community Services Rebecca Stevenson, Acting Director Corporate Services Tracy Hankin, Acting Director Environment and Development Services Michael Bartlett, IT Officer Michael Glazer and Sandy Rustel.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We have two apologies this evening, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Lovell. There is no leave of absence and there is no absent. Item 3 of the agenda is declarations of interest. Councillor, is there any item on the agenda where you need to declare an interest this evening? No response?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, so that's nil recorded. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. If someone's happy to move the minutes for the ordinary meeting held on the 9th of December 2020, Councillor O'May is moving that and seconding is Councillor Newell. Thank you very much. So I'll put the motion and we'll ask each councillor to state whether they are for or against the motion, please. Councillor Doyle.
For, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Newell.
For.
Councillor O'May.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Councillor Prince.
For.
Councillor Gibson.
For.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5, there are no legislative items.
Correct, Mayor.
Item 6, there are no urgent matters.
Correct, Mayor.
Item 7, are there any councillors that wish to make an announcement this evening?
No, ma'am.
No? All right, that's fine. We'll move on to public participation. 8.1, public question time. Where questions can be answered, the question and answer will be recorded at tonight's meeting. Where questions cannot be answered, the question will be taken on notice and answered at the February Council meeting. Question time is limited to 15 minutes. And public questions were received up to 12 noon today, and all questions and answers have been uploaded to Council's meeting page for public viewing prior to this Council meeting starting. So 8.1.1, there are no answers to previous questions taken on notice. 8.1.2, there are no questions on notice. And 8.1.3, there are 2 questions without notice. The first question is from Lisa Litchens. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, Lisa. If I haven't, I do apologise, of Cygnet. The question reads, will the Council give proper consideration and make the appropriate amendments suggested by residents to the proposed Cygnet Smith Street development, i.e. to make it ecologically viable and reduce traffic impact, And will the councils address ratepayers' concerns with new policy and implementation over inappropriate developments, i.e. unsustainable and aesthetically unappealing houses and buildings? And Lisa, Council's response is, I'm unable to actually respond to that, so I refuse to accept the first part of the question as it relates to an item listed on the agenda for the Council meeting to be dealt with as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. With respect to the second part of the question, the Council does not have authority to establish policy in relation to the matters that have been identified, and these are otherwise considered by the Council in accordance with the requirements of the planning scheme. Council will soon be subject to the requirements of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, providing for consistency across the state. Thank you, Lisa, for your question. The next question is from Jeffrey Swan of Lonavale. And the question reads, at the 25th of November 2020 meeting of Council, a motion put forward by Kingborough Council for inclusion in the upcoming 3 December 2020 Legat conference was tabled for discussion. The proposed motion was to debate no confidence in the local government code of conduct process. Our council officers' assessment was not to support the motion, and after much discussion, our councillors arrived at a vote of 4 to 4, Councillor Wilson being absent from the meeting and vote. Further comment from the Director of Governance was that our Mayor was to abstain from voting at the conference. The HVC minutes for item 10.3 reflected that motion was not supported. The minutes of the Legat conference revealed that Mayor Enders did, however, vote and voted in support of the no confidence motion. My question to our Mayor is, why did you not abide by the resolution of Council? And my question to our GM is, what are the ramifications and legalities of our Mayor not following a resolution of Council? And the response to Mr Swan from Council is, no vote was cast in relation to the original motion presented by Kingborough Council, which specifically called for no confidence in the Code of Conduct panel. After some debate, and as shown in the Legat meeting draft minutes, the motion was amended to that the Local Government Association of Tasmania declares it has no confidence in the Local Government Code of Conduct process and calls for the Minister for Local Government to urgently take a more active role in resolving this issue. As Mayor, I considered it appropriate to vote for the amendment consistent with the Council resolution on voting at the meeting, which included discretion to vote on amendments to the motion, which actually was in the report to Council as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Swan. We'll now move on to 8.2, and there are no deputation addresses to Council.
Correct, Mayor.
Number 9, there are no petitions.
Correct, Mayor.
We move on to item 10, please. General reports. The first item on that report listing is the General Manager's operational report. Acting General Manager, do you wish to discuss the report at all?
Nothing further to add in that report, which is contained in the attachments, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. There's also a Human Resources quarterly report. Is that the same response as well?
Nothing further to add on the reports.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. So the next report is the Mayor's activities report. I'll just list a couple of things off that report. It was certainly a quieter month than usual for the role. A couple of highlights is the UTAS, University of Tasmanian Institute of Law Enforcement Studies workshop, which was designed for community members and those working in the sector of domestic violence. This initiative, managed by UTAS and funded by the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal, is from the Huon Valley Domestic Family Violence Alliance. There are 2 groups going through this training at the moment, which will continue through this year. So it's wonderful to have that training here in the Huon Valley. It was also exciting to start the community and business-led approach to beautify the main street of Huonville with a town team movement project. The beautification of the main street was identified in the 2015 Huonville and Redelar Master Plan, and then more recently by the Huon Valley Economic Recovery Network Group, supported by the Social Recovery Network Group. So if you're a business owner or operator or a community member, or perhaps a local artist or performer, we would love for you to get involved, and you can register your interest through Council's community service team. That program gets reactivated again in the month of February. Also, I coordinated a tour with 10 participants from Tourism Tasmania, Destination Southern Tasmania, Brand Tasmania, Parks and Wildlife, State Growth, Department of Premier and Cabinet, and the Dark Lab, and our General Manager, of course, to visit the proposed tourism sites between Hastings and Cockle Creek. The objective of the tour was to get everyone on the same page regarding the potential growth in iconic tourism experiences in the far south, but also, importantly, to view the current standard of the Huon Highway between Geeveston and Cockle Creek, knowing that it will need to meet the future demands of the tourist developments down there, as well as industry and our community. The next report that's on the list is the Audit Panel Committee minutes of the 1st of December. And, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Doyle?
No, not really tonight. Everything's fine. So.
All right, good, thank you. Do any councillors have any activities that they wish to table this evening?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Would you like to speak to those?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I accepted a new Tasmanian flag from Jackie Petrusma, which was on the 18th of December at the hub when she came down to have a look through there. And we've been meeting with council and outside as well over some composting ideas that we have, so that's pretty exciting. And we had, yourself and I had lunch with the Pensioners Association. If you ever get a chance to do that, it's pretty special. They're a pretty good bunch, so thank you.
All right, lovely. So that was Deputy Mayor Doyle tabling her activities. I'll now open discussion to the floor. Are there any comments or questions regarding the reports? No? Okay, that's all right. We'll move on then in that case. So, excuse me just for one moment. So if I can have a councillor to move that the general reports and minutes for the period 1 to 31 December 2020 be received and noted. That's Councillor Prince, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Thank you very much. And I'll ask all councillors one by one to vote either in favour or not of the actual motion. Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Newell.
For.
Councillor O'May.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson.
For.
And the Mayor says for, so that's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 11, councillor workshops, and I'll just pass over to the Acting General Manager to talk to that.
Thank you, Mayor. As outlined in the agenda, a workshop was held on 12th of January where councillors workshopped ideas and potential direction for the development of a waste strategy. Our Manager Environmental Services led a presentation in conjunction with a consultant for that, and some community engagement will be developed in the near future.
Thank you very much for that. We next go on to item 12, councillor questions. There are no questions on notice. And 12.2, are there any questions without notice this evening? I have a question from Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the Acting Director. It's in regard to household waste. Basically, the collection of household waste in our valley, have we got an indication of what the cost is? I realise that that probably can't be answered tonight, but if we could have an answer to that at the next council meeting. So the cost of the waste for the pickup in the valley itself, how long the contract runs for, and have we ever looked at running the service ourselves?
Mayor, I'll just probably say that we'll take that one on notice.
Yes.
and
Yep.
bring them answer back to the next meeting.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Thank you. Councillor O'May?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd also like to add to Councillor Wilson's statement there. I would also like to have a breakdown and also include what it costs council to clean up rubbish that has been dumped outside the waste disposal area, or in places where it's costing council to clean up rubbish which should have been sent to the waste disposal station, as a extra to Councillor Wilson's question. My second question, through you, Mayor, if I may, it's been brought to my attention on several occasions and again over the summer break that some residents are pretty unhappy with the planting of trees and the maintenance of the trees on the main drain works in Huonville. I did mention it quite a few months ago, but it's been brought up to me by other people that walk through the area that there doesn't seem to be any maintenance, and the trees that have been planted have died. As they're concerned residents and like their tax dollars spent wisely, one of the questions is why haven't the trees been maintained and kept alive or replanted? And two, is this going to be area going to be replanted to a level which is acceptable to the community to be able to walk through there and be happy with what council's done there?
Thank you for your question. I can see the Director of Infrastructure is ready to respond to that question. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor O'May, for your question. In regards to your question, I understand you're referring to the Skinners Creek walking track. That project, when it was undertaken, we had to give advance notice to the nursery to propagate the plants for that project. The project, through various appeals and other delays, caused some of the plants that we received from the nursery to be somewhat root bound by the time they were planted. It is a condition of our planting permit to actually landscape that area and plant out that area. The landscaping program is a 3-year program down that Skinners Creek walking track. There was an expectation that we would lose a number of trees that were planted there, but unfortunately it was either take the risk of them not surviving in the ground at the walking track, or just leave them in the pots to die at our nursery. So due to the advance notice we need to give the nursery for propagation for plants, they're worth a couple of dollars each at that early stages. So we'll be going through in the next couple of years and landscaping and replacing those plants.
Thank you, Director Bester. It sounds like you have the situation in hand there.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And thank you, Director. Councillor Doyle.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I suppose with the waste, with the working on our strategy, will help, and we did discuss the contract at the strategy meeting. So I'm pretty sure they'll be coming back to us, with some. Amanda will be coming back with some information about that.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Doyle. I wasn't unfortunately at that meeting, so I didn't realise that it was. That's great that that's happening.
Yep. Right, lovely. Now, Councillor Gibson, do you have any questions?
No, I think that's fine for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Newell has a question.
Look, I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question at the moment or not. Over the last 4 weeks, I've had 2 trips to Cygnet just to have a talk with a couple of concerned ratepayers over a property that is on as you come into Cygnet on the left-hand side. I didn't write the address down, unfortunately. It's full of junk. It looks like a huge industrial yard. And I wondered, are we taking a bit of action on that property?
Yeah, perhaps we could discuss that in the next part of the meeting.
Okay.
In the question time there.
Yep, no problems.
Yep, thank you. Ta. Right, if there's no other questions, we'll go to item 13, which there are no notices of motion we have listed
Correct,
tonight.
yes.
Thank you. And we go into our first report for tonight, which is the draft 2019-2020 annual report, agenda number 14.001/21. And do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. And do you have any opening remarks, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, thank you very much. Look, I'd just like to say that every year the annual reports or the draft annual reports are extremely well done, and there's no exception this year. It really has been well put together by our staff. I think if you read right through it, it's very thorough. It's very professional, and it's something that all councillors and our ratepayers should be very proud of. So, to the staff, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yes, Councillor Doyle?
I also think that, but I think that the last 12 months has been pretty taxing for everybody. So, to be able to do this and complete work and do lots of different things, we've been very fortunate in the Valley.
Thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Gibson?
No, that's fine.
All right, thank you. Look, I've just made some notes, more so to probably continue on from where the point was with Councillor Wilson and also Councillor Doyle about the magnitude of work that's achieved. And I just wanted to read out some of those items so that it might give some of our public interest to actually pick up that document and have a read of it, because there's a lot of staff time that's been invested into this particular document. One is the work, but the actual bringing it all together to give a true reflection of the business and how it's performing. So when preparing the foreword for the Mayor and the GM in this annual report, I was reminded by public comments received for the 2016-17 calendar year, actually, where there was a member of the public said that there was no mention of the Board of Inquiry. With this in mind, I can see that every single thing has been captured, and for starters, the Reconciliation Action Plan, our COVID-19 response, including a 0% general rate increase, a new way of working for the council staff and elected members, the introduction of a hardship policy and a $260,000 social and economic grant and recovery program, a Huon Valley quick response grant program, the potential sale, of course, of the Cygnet Medical Centre. We talk about that as well. Closing the doors of council's visitor information services and opening the community engagement at the collaborate level for the revitalisation of the Geeveston Town Hall. We talk about that as well. A list of priority projects for federal and state government funding, feasibility studies for a mountain bike trail and the Huonville to Franklin shared pathway, continued support for bushfire recovery and conducting a review of Council's 2019 responses to our bushfires, continued work on the climate change strategy, not only here but also our commitment through the Southern Tasmanian Council Authority, the release of the Community Satisfaction Survey, highlighting areas that we're performing really well but also areas that we want to improve in, expansion of our Huon Being Stories, that very unique Huon art program that we do, 2020 Australia Day Awards and Citizenship Ceremony, key upgrades to council systems that has enabled us to make efficiencies and improve our quality of service that we provide, recovery of council's collateralised debt obligation investments, we talk about that as well, delivered a council's largest spend on capital works to the value of $12.2 million, which was largely due to the Huonville Stormwater Diversion Project, increased our focus on communicating regularly to the public via social media, asking people to have their say about our projects, and more in print media. And in closing, Like Councillor Wilson, I'd like to acknowledge the work that my fellow councillors and General Manager and council staff are doing collectively with our efforts in caring for our community, whilst making some incredibly difficult decisions in unprecedented time in our history. And I think that the annual report, it is a historical document, and I believe that it actually does really truly reflect this past year. So thank you. So, Councillor Wilson, do you have any closing comments, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just encourage the public in general to read this report, as many as can. It's 125 pages long, so you don't need to read the whole 125. But there's certainly some interesting facts, figures of where this council has been going over the last 12 months, and I think, again, we should be very proud of this compared with other councils throughout Tasmania.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So I'll now put the motion and ask for those that are for and against the motion. Councillor Doyle.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Newell.
For.
Councillor O'May.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson.
For, Mayor.
And that's the Mayor is for, and that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. We'll now go to the report titled Geeveston Town Hall, agenda number 14.002/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Newell, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor O'May, thank you very much. Councillor Newell, do you have any opening remarks? Thank you. I'll now open up for discussion to the floor. Are there any comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Wilson, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I fully support what's happening down there. I really do. I think they're doing a great job. But I have been asked by a couple of ratepayers now that what is the situation as far as lease to council on the building itself, insurance, workers' compensation, public liability, maintenance on the building on the inside, and water and council rates. Now, is the Town Hall Committee effectively responsible for that? That's the question that's been asked of me, or do council still pay it?
Acting General Manager?
Through you, Mayor, just understanding the question. So if that's based upon a controlling authority being established,
yes,
then there would be no requirement for a lease because the controlling authority has the legal personality of council.
Yes.
So that is there. Responsibility for the building and internal works will likely be a responsibility of the controlling authority as part of their budget and responsibilities. Rates would not apply in those circumstances. And I can't remember, insurances, for the most part they would rely upon council's insurance, but there may be some specific activities where they would need to get separate insurance. So whereas GTH needs to get some of their own insurances and things, this actually gives the greater protection with the council umbrella underneath or over the top.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Acting General Manager, for that.
Further questions? Yes, Councillor Doyle, then Councillor O'May. Thank you.
It's more a statement.
A statement, yes. So your statement, yes.
GDH Co, just for everyone's benefit, have always paid for everything that we get billed for. We actually have been paying rates under the old system, Matthew, I'm pretty sure. Under the old system? No? I thought so. Anyway, but we pay our own power for our section. We pay anything else that's done through council. We pay the bills. So we've always done that. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. It's just that, as I said, ratepayers have been asking the question, and I think it's important they know it's part of the an asset, obviously, of the valley, and it's important that they do know.
Well, definitely, and I think that Ross and a couple of the others would have their own insurance too, to be able to cover themselves. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor O'May, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the two councillors in the area down there for their tireless effort in promoting this project, as well as the Huon Valley Council in general have done an amazing job. I've heard nothing but positive comments from this project. It's most of all, I'd like to thank the volunteers from the area, the people that put in tireless hours and make this project work as well as it has. Congratulations, and keep up the good work, and yeah, well done to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Any other questions or comments by councillors? Councillor Gibson?
I did look through all of those different
Options?
options, and it seemed that this was the best. I don't know whether all options were covered, but certainly of the ones that were outlined, this seems to be a good one.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just make a couple of comments then. So I just want to firstly thank the author of who wrote this report, and for exploring and then explaining how the 4 different options would work. And also importantly, that community feedback on a management model for the GTH has been strong on the point that the hall should be managed by a community-led organisation using a skill-based volunteer, with council helping to ensure the model is sustainable in the long term. So using that criteria, which was a community-led request, which is great that, you know, we've got an option in front of us that is meeting that. The recommendation of a controlling authority seems to, as I said, achieve the community aspirations whilst ensuring the current and competent members of the GHT Co can transfer over to the authority. So we're not losing the skill base and the knowledge that's there now. Thank you once again to everyone that's been involved in the community-led project, for everybody that literally did turn up to sessions, provided survey results, spoke to their councillors, spoke to staff and the consultant. And should this recommendation be supported tonight, I look forward to council supporting the controlling authority as they implement the remaining priorities identified by our community. That being, the hall should be a central community hub that continues to capture tourism, be a venue for events for local tourism purposes that encourage community enterprise, creativity and connection, and the hall should generate revenue to manage expenses of the operations. And fortunately, our communities wish for council to install a lift. They know now has been funded, so that is going to happen. So that's one thing off the list already. And that's thanks to the Tasmanian Government's Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. Thank you very much. So over to Councillor Newell. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I think it's a good thing.
All right, lovely, thank you. So now I will put the motion and ask for those in favour and those against. Councillor Doyle. For. Thank you. Councillor Newell.
For.
Councillor May.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson.
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. So the next report we have in front of us is the Bylaws Review, Miscellaneous Amendments Bylaw, agenda number 15.001/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor May, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Councillor May, do you have any opening remarks?
No, Mayor. Some of these laws, as I've discussed with our Director of Legal Governance, I think are in some ways firm and leave little judgment to the adjudicator at the time, but I think in general everything looks pretty up to scratch to me.
Thank you very much. Any other councillors that wish to make any comments? No? Councillor Gibson?
No, that's all right. I'll let that one go, thanks.
Okay. So yeah, these are minor amendments that have been done to the bylaws, and councillors are fully aware now that if they wanted to make any wholesale changes, that the response is that their suggestions are formed in a councillor workshop where all councillors and the appropriate officers are present to work through the suggestions that are put forward. So, Councillor O'May, do you have any closing remarks?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Lovely, okay. I'll put the motion then. I'll ask for those that are for and against. Councillor Doyle?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Newell?
For, Mayor.
Councillor O'May?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince?
For, Mayor.
And Councillor Gibson?
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to the lease of public land, Old Fire Station Shed Ranelagh Recreation Area, agenda number 15.002/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor O'May, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Doyle, thank you. Councillor O'May, do you have any opening remarks?
No, Mayor, just good to see the she's are up with the men's shed there, and great proposal.
All right, thank you. Any other comments at all or questions?
Yeah, through you, Mayor.
Yes, certainly.
I mean, they're very enthusiastic.
Yes.
And when we did meet with them, they were very appreciative of us taking the time. So, yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So there's no other questions or comments. Councillor Gibson?
No, thank you. I think it's great.
All right, lovely. So I think it's a wonderful initiative too, giving opportunity to women to learn new skills, whether that's leading to greater independence or learning something new purely for pleasure. And I first heard about this idea from the president, Mon Huon, who's in the Cygnet area, and Mon had posted a Facebook post about another she shed actually, and got 400 plus women interested within about an hour. And Mon is supported with a great committee, a small but great committee, who are very determined to get the she shed up and operating. So that was in August last year, and by September the committee had 235 women ready to register as either members or to learn how to train others. Yeah. So it's great to see this community-driven project embraced by the Huon Ag Society. Thank you very much, Huon Ag Society. And also thank you very much to Beck Stevenson and Angela, her team member, for very quickly working out a solution for a location for the She Shed group. Really appreciated. It was lovely to see that in action and helping out community members so quickly. Right, so it's wonderful. We've got both men's sheds, as you were saying, Councillor O'May, and she sheds in the valley. So do you have any closing remarks, Councillor O'May?
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to say one thing in regards to both the she and the men's sheds, that I think in these troubled times that we seem to be in the last 12 months and unknown future, that we should be trying to promote as much as we possibly can to encourage people to do more practical skills, learn how to fix things, build things with their hands, and I think it's a great proposal anywhere that this practical knowledge is shared from people who are lucky enough to be able to help others with. And I just think we should be really promoting this as much as possible. It's healthy for the community.
Great, thank you. Well said. All right, so I'll put the motion and ask each councillor whether they are for or against the motion. Councillor Doyle.
For, Mayor.
For, Mayor.
That was Councillor Newell.
Yep.
Councillor O'May.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince.
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson.
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move to the next report, which is the financial report, agenda number 16.001/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? That's Councillor Wilson. Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Prince. Councillor Wilson, do you have any opening remarks?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Look, again, like all the reports that are coming to us each and every month, I think the financial report is very thorough in the way that it's presented to us, very thorough. And I congratulate the Acting Director and the Department for the way that's come through again this month. But one question, under borrowings, the interest-free loan of Tas Corp's 1.4 million, is that to be paid back by April 2024 over a term, or is it all to be paid back at once?
Yeah, thank you. We have fixed term repayments on that, so we're paying annually, paying down over a 5-year term.
Okay, so it's being paid at the moment?
Yes.
And through to 2024?
Yes.
Thanks very much for that, Acting Director.
Now open to the floor for discussion, for questions or comments. Any councillors? Councillor Doyle?
Yeah, through you.
Yes.
Can I ask the Acting Director down there? The reserves, or I know that I think we were told that a lot of times there seems to be, there'll be invoices not in, or, money not spent on a project. I'd always like to be able to have that money put over so we could have a bit of a spend, but is it possible at some stage just to let us know when, well, I know that it's there now, but say we've got one down there that's 67,000 on the 40A extension. We're 75% done. Like, how many invoices do you think will be coming in for that? Will that 67 cover it, or will there be a surplus? It's just so we know where we're sitting, sort of thing. Because I know that we have, there's projects there that are 100%, and we've got reserves carried forward. Yeah. So yeah.
It's difficult to give an answer because lots of these things would have a different answer.
Yeah. Okay.
We try to note it as much as we can in the notes in the Capital Works report.
Yes,
we've included that in this month's report.
Yep.
So if there's something that's going to be a change to the budget, we try and note it in these things.
Yep.
The one that you're talking about, I think Len would probably agree with the 40A extension that budget will be fully utilised.
Yeah, okay. So there's enough, there's invoices coming in. Yep. All right, thanks very much.
Is there any other questions or comments?
I had a couple of questions.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Yes, proceed.
Through you, Mayor, to the Acting Director.
Yes.
I was just going through it. I've just made a few notes. One was in community services, there's a $100,000 drop in development. I just wondered if we could have an explanation for that. There was a walking track unallocated budget of 93,403, which again I wasn't quite sure what that was, how that would, some clarification on that. And the plant and fleet has a very big budget with only 18% of it spent. I was wondering whether it could be. I don't have that open because no.
Through Matt, we'll tag teams with the directors and acting directors to answer as best we can.
Yeah.
Through you, Matt. Thanks, Councillor Gibson. The community services one I can talk to. and it actually refers to the community development line of 110
That's
as an
it.
unfavourable. Yep. So it's actually relating to reserves carried forward. So that program has a number of grants that were carried forward as reserves, which from a budget perspective is obviously not a council budget. So that's the allocation of reserves that have been carried forward from previous years and then being expensed in this current financial year.
Okay.
I can give
Thank
some
you.
specific examples of those grants if you'd like more detail, but yeah, that's the answer to the whole program for community development, and it's the same with emergency management. There's a reserve for some works there that's being expensed as well.
Great.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Councillor Gibson, I just want to make a comment on the plant and fleet purchases. What you're not seeing in this report is committed funds where we've issued purchase orders for the purchase. We have 2 of our hydromower tractors up for replacement this year and a number of other plant as well. So we have an expectation that will be very close to fully expended. We just don't get the invoices until the plant and the vehicles arrive.
Okay. So it's in the pipeline.
Yes, we make the order, and sometimes there's a 3-4 month wait for the delivery of especially with plant, and then we get invoiced. So that's when you see it jump up quite quickly towards the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Yep.
Does that complete your...
The last one.
There was the walking
Allocated
track
walking
unallocated budget.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Mayor, the answer for that one is the expenditure for that budget is in relation to inspections. So work is funds are allocated based on inspection regimes that occur during the year. So they haven't actually been allocated to a specific walking track asset as yet.
So it's a general maintenance figure, is it?
No, recurrent renewal. Sorry,
Recurrent.
It's asset renewal program.
Renewal program.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not for new work.
No.
No, it's not for
No,
new work.
it's within the walking tracks asset renewal program.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is there any further questions or comments? I do have a question now, actually, as a result of probably some of those answers and the questions before them. Just in regards to purchase orders, and then when the actual, when a tax invoice is issued and paid is when the finances are updated. We are using an accrual accounting method though, are we not? Which is when a purchase order is issued, it sits in the system to actually show what we can expect from the tax invoice coming in to do a match, unless there is a variation to a particular project. So therefore, even though it might be 6 months down the track before the work is done or the piece of machinery is delivered, the system would identify that there is actually an accrue there of that amount, so that the organisation doesn't overspend in that budget line. So you can see what that true cost is. So I'm not sure if that's what Councillor Doyle was actually perhaps leading to, is that the amount that we're actually looking at is perhaps not the true reflection when there is an accrual in the system waiting for the tax invoice to come in. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, and just to answer that further, we are capturing that information. We've been reviewing this report. At the moment, because of the information that's already in there, we hope to capture that information within the percentage information. It was just getting quite cluttered to bring in another layer of information. So 1 through the comments and 2 through the percentage of expended and also the physical works completed. So we're hoping to capture that information in there. And if the 2 are not aligned, there should be a reason why.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that answer. All right, so Councillor Wilson, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I know that I'm always very supportive of what our staff do, and I think for a very good reason, because compare us with other councils throughout the state. But read our audit report that comes in annually and see what they're saying, and it's spot on. I think financially we're in a very good position, and financially we're seen by an independent body to be certainly doing the right thing, and I think that's very important. So I congratulate that finance department. Are doing a fantastic job, as I said. Read the annual report from the auditors.
Right, thank you, Councillor Wilson. So I'll put the motion and ask those to vote either for or against the motion. Councillor Doyle?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Neal?
For, Mayor.
Councillor O'May?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson?
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for responding to our questions. I now advise that the Council is acting as a planning authority as at 6:50 p.m. Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulations 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the Council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. The title of this report is Report under former Section 39 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for consideration of representations received by Council following exhibition of Draft Amendment PSA-1/2020, Agenda Number 17.001/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Doyle, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Prince, thank you. Councillor Doyle, do you have any opening remarks, please?
No, not at the moment, thanks, Mayor.
That's right, thank you. So I'll now open for discussion to the floor. If there's any questions or comments, please, regarding this report. Councillor Gibson?
Yes, I did have a question.
Yes?
Just with the predicted expansion of Cygnet, it's at some point the treatment plant is obviously not going to be able to cope with the extra population, and I'm just wondering if the bigger treatment plant has been taken into consideration with regard to a bigger buffer zone, and I guess that was my slight concern. Are we boxing ourselves into a situation where we need to get a bigger treatment plant and we don't have the buffer zone anymore?
So it was really a couple of questions there, really, wasn't it, Councillor Gibson?
No, it's really just the one.
Okay.
Does the next size up, the bigger treatment plant, require a bigger buffer zone?
Right, thank you. Yes.
I'll throw that to the acting
Yes,
director.
you'll throw it to the acting director. All right, thank you. Yes.
Excuse me. Yes, I've got a few comments in response to the question. First of all, the plant operator, that is Taswater, have provided its view about the attenuation change, the attenuation layer reduction from 400 to approximately 400 metres to 200 metres.
Yep.
That's the first thing. So they've had that is Taswater as the plant operator, have had an opportunity to be consulted in two ways. One is in relation to this particular amendment, but also secondly, they have been involved obviously with the related application for the proposal for the amendment and the 61 lot subdivision proposal, and have put forward a set of conditions which includes some upgrading requirements in that Taswater set of conditions that relate to the subdivision. on the amendment to the overlay, for the attenuation overlay that we're talking about for this application, some comments in relation to Taswater generally. First of all, they are already operating, as I understand it, and they've communicated that to Council in August last year, already operating with a reduced buffer themselves. In other words, their own mapping is showing 200 metre overlay in any event. So they're quite comfortable, as I understand it, and with the reduction during this part of the process. They have not chosen to put for example, a representation in at all, which indicates, in my view, that they have no concerns with the reduction. So in other words, they haven't chosen to participate through the representation phase, either as a regulator or as the owner of the relevant land. So I personally, having reviewed the application, don't see any indication from Taswater that there is any apparent reason for it not to be reduced down to 200 metres. And I'd take on board that no doubt in their own assessment and review and other internal processes, they will be factoring in the current population of Cygnet and no doubt future population of Cygnet, and for example, that details readily available through, for example, the ABS figures for currently for Cygnet, and they also have had an opportunity to be provided with the SGS report that forms part of the related application for the subdivision. There are 2 SGS reports in that application that talk about projections for the next 15 years approximately for Cygnet and what that means from a increased population point of view. So I'm comfortable with their view that they've conveyed through to the council.
Thank you, Director.
So can I just clarify? So Taswater, that they've been through the DSD reports and they're aware of the expansion of the town, the likely expansion of the town.
Oh, absolutely. They most certainly are. I say that in particular in relation to PSA number 2 of 217 and its related subdivision. In relation to that application, they've been provided not only with the proposal from Mr. Rowe, but also a SGS report commissioned by Mr. Rowe as the applicant, and also the other SGS report, which is August last year, which the council commissioned as well. So there are 2 reports that have definitely been provided to Taswater, which set out a number of growth scenarios and the like. So, you know, they obviously will have their own research as well and projections, but they would have had the opportunity to read those 2 reports.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. One more call for any questions or comments. First of all, I'd like to thank the people that submitted a representation for the amendment of the attenuation area overlay applicable to the Cygnet treatment plant. And also included in this feedback are concerns relating to the town and population growth. They aren't planning authority considerations, but I will make some reference to it in the next report. Just to say that I've also considered the advice from Taswater and the EPA on this particular application. So prior to Council's decision on the 21st of October 2020, Taswater provided advice to Council on the 4th of August 2020 that an attenuation distance of 200 metres was considered an appropriate distance by Taswater for the CTP. This advice was included as attachment F to Council's decision, and that advice is also set out in attachment C to this report. Also, Taswater submission to Planning Authority notice, pages 26 to 29 of the attachments, address the water and sewage conditions that the developer needs to meet, and they are comprehensive. I think it's about 4 pages worth. The EPA Tasmania provides a letter to the Planning Authority, pages 125 to 151, and that provides commentary around nuisance odours and modelling of potential impacts of odour emissions from the wastewater treatment plant. And they also confirm that the EPA does not object to the proposed amendment. So, Councillor Doyle, do you have anything to say in closing, please?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'll put the motion and ask those two councillors to either say whether they're in favour or not of the motion. Councillor Doyle.
For, ma'am.
Councillor Newell.
For me.
Councillor May.
For me.
Councillor Wilson.
For me.
Councillor Prince.
For, ma'am.
Councillor Gibson.
For me.
And the Mayor is for. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. The next report we have in front of us is the report under former Section 39 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for consideration of representations received by Council following exhibition of draft amendment PSA -2/2017 and draft planning permit sub -36/2017. Agenda number 17.002/21. Before we get the motion underway, I'd like to make reference that attachment E has been updated and that is now with the councillors and the changes up on the website. And perhaps the Acting Director of Environmental and Planning would just like to explain why that update's occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The version of attachment E that what is currently part of the agenda papers, there are, as indicated, some minor amendments that have been made. They're only typographical. That's an initiative I've made myself. To just correct a couple of typographical type changes, and there are 2 cross references in the document that were not correct, which I drafted and accept the needed to have a change. So they don't change the document itself. They're just purely formatting or typographical based, and I'm happy to go through each one if that's if you propose to.
Thank you very much for explaining that. So do I have a councillor to move a motion on this one? Councillor Newell, and a seconder is Councillor Wilson. Councillor Newell, do you have any opening remarks?
Mayor, after speaking to some locals that I've known for a long time down there in the last month, I think the major worry for them would be where are their children going to live, and I think this subdivision is great for the town. I think it's just part of life that everywhere is going to expand, and I think it's being done well, and I think it'll be a lovely development for Cygnet.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. Over to the floor for comments and questions, please. Councillor Gibson, do you have anything to say?
I did. Well, I guess it's around all of the comments and representations, and also conversations I've had in the community about Cygnet wanting to, it's a fairly progressive community and they want to do things differently, so, and in a way that doesn't detract from Cygnet's atmosphere and amenity. I know because council's working as a planning authority and we have to respond to the developer's proposal, we don't really have a lot of leeway there. I guess my question was, is the developer being provided with all of the community input so that at least they are appraised of, you know, what the community is asking for and interested in?
Can I just clarify, Councillor Gibson, are you asking whether the developer has been provided with the full set of representations for this application?
Yes, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, certainly.
Mayor, I might throw to the Acting Director, but the process from here, Councillor Gibson, is that any decision of council will be forwarded to the Tasmanian Planning Commission, so all that information will be available to all the parties for the commission. So the developer would certainly have access to that and also have access to them through the attachments for tonight's council meeting.
Right, okay, good. There was, I only had one other comment, which was around the traffic impact study. There seemed to be a couple of discrepancies there, and but that was all, from what I understand, going to the prescription of how that's going to be done. It's all going to be done by BSG. They're going to prescribe what the developer needs to do in construction works there. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mayor. In relation to traffic, just some general comments. Firstly, as you'd be aware, there is a traffic impact assessment that forms part of the application. That was from Mr. Midson.
You're just slightly hard for me to hear, unfortunately.
Okay. So with the application, there's a traffic impact assessment from Mr. Midson, who has provided that report for the applicant.
Yep.
Other parties that are involved, and just for noting it, of course, this is a Department of State Growth Road, highway. Obviously, the DSG have equally been involved, so they have also made their own assessment of the highway as it interacts with the proposal, including some provision for road widening as well. And there are also a set of conditions that have been drafted that also, whilst they're draft, because this will proceed to the Tasmanian Planning Commission to make its final decisions on the amendment and the draft permit, but for the present purposes there are a set of standard conditions that apply to this proposal. Those conditions have been prepared largely by Council's own engineering staff and apply the basic standard provisions that one would expect to see in a subdivision of this nature. I appreciate that having read all the representations, there are 48, there are a number of those which refer to the traffic and highway related issues. However, having the traffic impact statement, the fact that the DSG as the road authority have not put a representation in on safety related issues, they have put a representation on some issues not related to safety as such. It's mainly in relation to matters relating to one of the footpaths and so on, and also the fact that that is council's development engineers, and that's two of them in this case, have reviewed the application from an engineering point of view. My view is that council can be confident that with that amount of review that the application, insofar as safety and those sort of concerns on the highway have been addressed. There is still, as the Acting General Manager just indicated a further stage of this process to go through, which will be when, if Council forward the report to the Commission, there will be the TPC part of the process to go through, which will, I anticipate, involve a hearing for those that are able to participate in that, and many of the same concerns that have been raised in these representations can then be further explored with the TPC. So this doesn't mark the end of the opportunity for the residents and other concerned parties to put forward submissions, and I must say some of them have got some merit in terms of the general comments around Cygnet in terms of infrastructure. I don't think there's any doubt that the Cygnet township could be improved, but that as an issue is separate to the in many ways to the application that we need to consider, the council needs to consider. It's certainly related, but it is the statutory assessment part of the process that needs to be considered, and that is why in this current draft of the comments on the representation, majority of those are saying that there is not saying there's no merit in the representation from those that have put them forward. It is saying that the representation doesn't, from a planning point of view, warrant a change to what has already been set out in terms of the application from the applicant and the conditions that...
Yes, I understand that now.
Yes. Thank you.
So does that satisfy your question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Councillor May, thank you.
Yes, Mayor. I've been and visited the site. I'm generally not happy with any farmland being taken over by this sort of development, but on having viewed the site within stone's throw of the town centre and waterfront, there really isn't any other logical place to go, and I think it's going to be good for Cygnet. People have access to the foreshore there, and it's close to the park there as well. So I just think it's a win for Cygnet personally, and a good proposal.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor May. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, just wrapping it up. The application has received 48 representations. No doubt a considerable amount of representations mean there's a lot of effort done by lots of individuals to go through this process to raise their concerns. Many not relating to our role as a planning authority, but do relate to the population growth in the town of Cygnet, and therefore how, as a local government, but also how state government responds to that growth is certainly something that we need to consider, but not as a planning authority. So I'd firstly respond to matters pertaining as a planning authority. The scenic landscape corridor and visual impacts. The acting director did sort of brush into that area as well, so I've had confirmed that the partial amendment to the application of the scenic landscapes corridor overlay to the property, which forms part of this application, will not prevent the ability for tree planting, for landscaping, for footpaths along the Channel Highway. And I know that was raised many times in the actual representations. So, being planning related, there's a strong response on that one, and one that's been confirmed. Matters relating to traffic engineering and management, stormwater and sewage will be a condition of the permit. Also, the Channel Highway is a state growth owned road. So, as the acting director mentioned, there is absolutely engagement in that area about how that road ends up looking, and far as all its safety treatments, etc. as well, and how it functions as a main traffic road. In relation to the items that aren't planning authority matters, but the ones that I said are growth related, I wanted to give assurance to the public that council is already responding to these other concerns that have been raised through the representation process, and namely that is the capacity of existing infrastructure and roads and the capacity of services required, including through the private sector, to meet the demands of a growing population. And we are responding by keeping our politicians informed, but just not them, also the department heads of government. We're committed to ensuring government work with us to meet the demands of growth, predominantly in Cygnet and Huonville, which is what we're experiencing now. And there are many reports that correlate about that growth that we are raising with the state government and also federal government politicians as well. And those communications will only step up even greater in the next 2 years with the federal and state government election that is happening in the next couple of years. So I just wanted to give that reassurance that your council is working in that area to raise that attention and to respond. Councillor Newell, do you have any closing remarks, please?
No, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'll put the motion then and ask for councillors to vote either in favour or against. Councillor Doyle? For. Councillor Newell?
For, Mayor.
Councillor O'May?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince?
For, Mayor.
And Councillor Gibson?
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for, so that's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. Whoops, I just bypassed one report. Okay, I now advise that the council is no longer acting as a planning authority as at 7:16. Thank you very much, Sandy. The next report we have in front of us is the Municipal Emergency Management Plan, agenda number 19.001/21. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Prince, thank you, followed by Councillor O'May as a seconder. Councillor Prince, do you have any opening remarks, please?
Firstly, I'd just like to say how comprehensive and excellent I found this report to be. It's quite easy to read through, it's very well detailed, very well set out and explains itself quite well. Thank you. My only sort of, perhaps, not even maybe a question, or something I noted in it is that the sort of Greater Grove area, being low along the Crabtree, Mountain River, Lucaston and Grove, have no access to a sort of near a safer place during a bushfire emergency. Is there some scope, given this report, that the state government would be aware of that and potentially might be able to assist in changing that situation in the future? Through you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prince. The Grove area does come up quite frequently with the community, with concern, as you can imagine, for no nearby safe place being identified there. Council have spoken with the TFS planning unit, who actually do the assessments for nearby safe places, and looked at a number of alternative sites that could be available. But unfortunately, to meet the criteria, there just hasn't been a location that is identified. So, that becomes part of what our public messaging looks like during and leading up to bushfire season, and a frequent conversation that does need to happen in that area, because there isn't the community protection plan doesn't identify that nearby safe place. So that's where individual plans are highly important for that area.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Thanks to the Director. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor O'May, thank you.
I'd just like to make one suggestion in regards to Councillor Prince's remark, and that specifically in a bushfire, I would have thought the safest place would be beside potentially the best body of water, and the most easily accessed by road. I think there's one place stands out pretty well to me there, with the new dam that's been built up there. If there could be some liaison with the proprietors there in regards to council and landowners and establishment, we should be able to come up with some emergency plan there, I would have thought, which would be safer and easy to get to. I'm not sure, it's just a suggestion, that's all.
So the Director of Community Services will respond.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Councillor May, I'm happy to take that suggestion on board and we can pass that on for consideration of the planning unit.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's worthy of following that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Gibson?
No, nothing on this, thanks.
All right. I just wanted to say I agree with Councillor Gibson. Gibson, sorry. Councillor Prince, I do apologise. I thought I could get away with one meeting without making that mistake. And that is, the actual content of the document is not necessarily what you think might be in there. There is actually a lot of history about emergency management and how council has responded and how emergency services have responded. Also about the future concerns of impact. So it's past, present and over the horizon. It is a really good document. So encourage people to read it. All right, Councillor Prince, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, Mayor, just having attended a couple of national emergencies in the last 12 months, yeah, just really appreciate having this sort of level of planning. It's awesome to see, and yeah, it's best laid plans would make a difference, so awesome work.
Thank you. So I'll put the motion and we'll ask those that are for and against the motion. Deputy Mayor Doyle?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Newell?
For, Mayor.
Councillor O'May?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Wilson?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Prince?
For, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson?
For, Mayor.
And the Mayor is for, and that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. So it's that time of the evening where we finish in open meeting and we move to closed session. Just like to thank anybody that is tuning in tonight to this meeting, and we look forward to seeing you in February at the February meeting. Thank you very much.